and grateful to have you in our Zoom call today. I request all the devotees, if possible, to please turn on your cameras, and you can rename yourself as your name and city if possible. That would be very, very grateful of all of you. So, Prabhuji, by your permission, can I do a quick introduction and then we can get started?
Yes.
So, dear Vaishnavas, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today, we are all so blessed, fortunate that we have His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu with all of us. We'll be talking about this wonderful topic of the glories of the holy name. Just a son needs no introduction. Similarly, are Krishna's pure devotees. But for my purification, I'll just share a quick introduction. His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu was born in 1956, and since a very early age, in his teen years, was exploring for the path of bhakti, the path of Krishna consciousness, the search of the Supreme Lord. And at the age of 16 years, one of his friends gave Prabhuji the Back to Godhead magazine by Srila Prabhupada. And at that time, in 1973 onwards, Prabhuji has been a pillar in Krishna consciousness for many, many devotees, a sincere, dedicated disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and initiating guru, a member of governing body commission, also the temple president for ISKCON of Silicon Valley, which has hundreds of dedicated devotees, families, kids, which are inspiration for the whole world. And I can continue on and on. And not to forget Prabhuji's good wife, Her Grace Nirakula Mataji, and Prabhuji have been serving this International Society for Krishna Consciousness for close to 50 years now, and we are very, very blessed, grateful, and honored to have His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu today on call with us. So, Prabhuji, on behalf of ISKCON Tampa community and all the assembled devotees, I welcome you on this call with a garland of gratitude, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Hare Krishna. If everyone is very, very excited and happy and eager to hear, and let's welcome Prabhuji by 3 times loudly chanting.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol,
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
I'm going to sing a few mantras. So just mute your mics because it won't sync up if you try to sing back. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Vraja Janaranjana Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Girivaradhari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vidham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktabinda Nitai Namineche Namarhate Sharamuli Namdite Chere Nitai Namineche Namirhate Sharamuli Namdite Chere Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tonight I'm going to read to you from one of Srila Prabhupada's books. And this is from the 8th canto, 23rd chapter, The Demigods Regain the Heavenly Planets. And I'm reading to you the verse, which is text number 16. Mantratas tantratas chidram desha kalarha vastutaha sarvam karoti nishchidram anu sankirtanam tava. And here are the word meanings. Mantrata, in pronouncing the Vedic mantras improperly. Tantrata, in insufficient knowledge for following regulative principles. Chidram, discrepancy. Desha, in the matter of country. Kala, and time. Artha, and the recipient. Vastuta, and paraphernalia. Sarvam, all these. Karoti, makes. Nishchidram, without discrepancy. Anusankirtanam, constantly chanting the holy name, Tava, of your lordship. Translation: there may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras and observing the regulative principles, and moreover, there may be discrepancies in regard to time, place, person, and paraphernalia. But when your lordship's holy name is chanted, everything becomes faultless. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nameva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. Brihan Naradiya Purana 38.126. In this age of Kali, it is extremely difficult to perform Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or sacrifices perfectly. Hardly anyone can chant the Vedic mantras with perfect pronunciation or accumulate the paraphernalia for Vedic performances. Therefore, the sacrifice recommended in this age is Sankirtan, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Yagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajantihi Sumedasaha, Bhagavatam 11:529. Instead of wasting time performing Vedic sacrifices, those who are intelligent, those who possess good brain substance, should take to the chanting of the Lord's holy name and thus perform sacrifice perfectly. I have seen that many religious leaders are addicted to performing yajnas and spending hundreds and thousands of rupees for imperfect sacrificial performances. This is a lesson for those who unnecessarily execute such imperfect sacrifices. We should take the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagnai Sankirtana Prayer Yajantihi Sumedasaha. Although Shukracharya was a strict Brahmana addicted to ritualistic activities, he also admitted Nishchidram Anusankirtanam Tava. My Lord, constant chanting of the holy name of your Lordship makes everything perfect. In Kali Yuga, the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies cannot be performed as perfectly as before. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami has recommended, although one should take care to follow all the principles in every kind of spiritual activity, especially in worship of the deity, there is still a chance of discrepancies, and one should compensate for this by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore give special stress to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra in all activities. So there are prescribed methods in every age according to the nature and quality of people of the age. And the Vedic processes of sacrifice are very difficult to perform in Kali Yuga, and they're not recommended. And therefore, there's a Pancharatric system. Pancharatric worship is different from the Vedic path. It's a summary actually given to us. Most of ours comes from Narada Muni. It's mentioned at the end of a very important chapter in the Bhagavatam, the 5th chapter, the 1st canto, in which Narada meets up with Srila Vyasadeva, his disciple. And Vyasa is feeling despondent, morose. He felt like he did his duty, but he's still not happy. So when he meets his guru, he asks him, what's my deficiency? And Narada chastises him and says, actually, you've given all these formulas that don't actually describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You've given many Puranas, you've given the Mahabharata, but they don't go far enough to describe the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He advises him to go back and meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and then bring forth those pastimes of Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan and in Dwarka and in Mathura. Because as Narada mentions, people will hear all these other injunctions from the Puranas and the Vedas that sometimes offer one an option to live happily in the material world. Narada was not for that at all. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjana, Nirdvanvo Nityasatvasto Niryoga Shem Mahatmavan. He tells Arjuna that you can disregard the Vedas, most of them, because they're speaking about our life in the material world, in the three modes of material nature. Of course, there's a summary of the Vedas, or the first transcendental aspect of the Vedas is the Upanishads, which begin to tell us about our existence beyond the modes of material nature. And then Srila Vyasadeva summarizes all those in the Vedanta Sutra. And then again, of course, after meeting Narada, before meeting Narada, he writes the Bhagavata Purana, and after meeting Narada, he gives us the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in its entirety, which is, we know, is the fruit of all the Vedic literature. So we have the evolution of the perfect science of spiritual practice. And then within that, Narada and all the other sages, Shukadeva himself begins the Bhagavatam, Etan nirvidyamananam ichatam akuto bayam, yoginam nripanirnitam, Hare namanukirtanam. He says at the outset of the Bhagavatam that it's already settled up that the perfection of all the practices in Krishna consciousness, all the practices of spiritual life, are there in Sankirtan, glorifying the name of the Lord. Etan nirvidyamananam ichatam akuto bayam, yoginam nripanirnitam. Doesn't matter who you are, what station in life you are, this process will fit for you. And it's already settled up, he says. It's been decided by the previous acharyas. And then back to where I was mentioning the Pancharatra. In the 5th chapter, when Narada tells Vyasadeva that he needs to talk about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, otherwise people won't be able to transcend the material world. They'll have some excuse to stay here. And near the end of that chapter, he mentions the chanting of the holy name. He says, Iti murtyabidanena mantra murtim amurtikam yajjate yagya purusham sasamyak darshana puman. That if you want the complete and direct darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you can have that by chanting the holy name. Iti murtya bidanena mantra murtim amurtikam. So he mentions the mantra, and he says that through the mantra that contains the holy names, Vaishnav mantras contain the names of Vishnu or Krishna. Iti murtya bidanena mantra murtim amurtikam. So he's mantra murtim amurtikam. Murti means form, it also means difficulty. Two things in Sanskrit. So mantra murtim amurtika means that the form of the Lord is revealed without difficulty through the mantra. Yagjate yagya purusha sasam yag darshana puman. You get puman, the full darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mantra. And in his purport, Prabhupada mentions that there are Vedic mantras and there are Pancharatric mantras, and that the Pancharatric mantras and process is more important in this age of Kali. It comprised of the vidhi of worshiping the deity and so forth, but it's not absolutely required theoretically. And this topic comes up in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the holy name doesn't wait for initiation. In other words, there are some mantras, like Vedic mantras, when you take Upanayanam, you have to take initiation from a guru and you have to hear it directly from the guru. But the holy name is an open mantra. People chant it on street corners. They play it on the radio, unlike the Gayatri, well, in India, Om Pur Bhuva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenya. You hear it playing from loudspeakers. But generally, it's not recommended that one pass that on willy-nilly. It has to be given to from a guru to a disciple, who's the disciple has to be qualified, guru has to be qualified in parampara and so forth. So the holy name, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, doesn't wait for initiation. However, our acharyas, and you'll notice in that verse, Jiva Goswami is heavily quoted, Prabhupada quotes him heavily, because he has a very specific opinion, and that is, yes, it's true that all you need is the holy name. However, you have to chant purely. You have to continue to chant at least. The Padma Purana says, Nama parada yuktanam naman yeva harantyagam avishrani parayuktani tam yevarta karani cha. That if you're chanting with offenses, the remedy is to keep on chanting without stopping. However, it's very difficult to keep on chanting if one is creating offenses because you'll lose the taste. It's a bit of a conundrum. Therefore, Jiva Goswami says the Pancharatric process and the mantras for the Pancharatric and the chanting of the holy name go well together. That's why Prabhupada introduced both. He could have just given the chanting of the holy name, and he emphasized the chanting of the holy name just as he does in this purport following Jiva Goswami, that for any ceremony that we do, the holy name has to be there in the beginning and the end. When you do deity worship, you have to chant the Maha Mantra when you start and when you finish any kind of yajna, because it's not complete without the holy name. In fact, we were in Vrindavan in 1975 when Prabhupada opened the temple. And there were all kinds of ceremonies. They went on for days. The Brahmins were there. If you've ever seen an installation of new deities, and they have hundreds, thousands of details that they attend to install the deity. Meanwhile, Prabhupada insisted that his American, European devotees, that's practically all there was back then, have this ongoing kirtan. We had a huge kirtan, very enthusiastic young people there having kirtan. Later, you may notice that Prabhupada wrote in one of his purports that he said, if it had been up to him, well, it was up to him, but if he had it his way, he would have just had the kirtan. He said, we didn't need all these other rituals. He said, but the local people in Vrindavan wouldn't have accepted it. The Smarta Brahmins wouldn't have accepted the installation of the deities and everything without bringing in local Brahmins to do all these yajnas. But Prabhupada affirmed his complete faith in the chanting of the holy name. It completes everything. Iti murtyabhidanena mantra murtyam amurtikam. It's the way in which you very easily come in contact directly with the formula. Yajyate yajya purusham sasamyag samyag darshana puman. You get the full darshan of Krishna. Everything's completed by the holy name. So he says that in this age, the Pancharatric mantras and the process is important because it keeps us in a pure enough state so that we can continue chanting the holy name without stoppage. And so he compared it, did Srila Prabhupada, oftentimes to a train running on two tracks. One track is the Pancharatric process, and the other track is the Bhagavat Marg, the chanting of Hare Krishna, and hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Have you noticed that? The two of these together are a very sublime process. However, we should know the position of the holy name, that it's the essence of all the practices that we do. It's mentioned in many other places. For instance, Rupa Goswami in his Namashtakam says, Nikila Shrutimali Ratnamala Duti Nirajita Pada Pankajanta Aimukta Kalera Pasyamanam Paritastam Harinama Samshrayami. Nikila Shruti Mali Ratnamala. So of all the Shrutis, talking all the Vedas, Like you'll know if you read the Bhagavatam, all of these various Shrutis, they're personified. Sometimes they get together for big seminars and they have discussions, debates, and so forth. And we have the personified Vedas speaking in the 10th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, near the end of the 10th canto. So Rupa Goswami writes, Nikila Shruti Mauri Ratnamala. The crown jewels of all the Vedas, as I mentioned earlier, are the Upanishads. Upanishad means sit up, you sit up close. Because you're tired of the material world. You're tired of trying to organize things so that you can find some kind of satisfaction in the material world. And now you really want to hear, like, what's it all about? Who am I really? So the crown jewels of all the Vedas are the Upanishad. Nikila Shruti Mali Ratnamala. Duti Nirajita Pada Pankajanta. And they're using their effulgence, their duty Nirajita Pada Pankajanta, to worship and illuminate the lotus feet of the holy name. So in other words, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions this in reference to this verse, he said, if you sneak in Mangalartik time to watch who are these Upanishads worshiping, they're worshiping the holy name. They're doing an artik there with their effulgence. And pointing to this fact, in fact, you find even in one of the Upanishads, the Kali Santarana Upanishad says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Iti Sodasakam Nam Nam, Kali Kalmasha Nashadam. Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. He said, anybody who knows what to look for in the Vedas knows that this is what you're looking for. This is the ultimate find, the treasure that you're going to find. Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. If you look through all the Vedas, you'll find this 16-word, 32-syllable mantra, Hare Krishna. It's right there in the Upanishads. And one example of how the Upanishads are pointing to the holy name. So now the Vedic mantras have to be pronounced properly. We know this from the story of Vritrasura. If you invert the syllable, hold something long or short, you could get the opposite of what you were hoping for. As in the case of Vritrasura, he ended up, and Indra was his enemy rather than he was the enemy of Indra, because of a slight discrepancy in the mantra pronunciation. However, in this verse specifically mentioned that this isn't the case with the Mahamantra, because the intention is important. The chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, when chanted by a devotee out of devotion, Krishna takes the intention of the devotee, calling out his name, and you'll find in the 11th canto, second, can you look it up, please, Shubha Vilas Prabhu? 11th canto, second chapter, I believe it's the last verse. Just see if it's there. Remind me how that starts. 11.255, is it? Prashuddhite hridayam nayasya sakshad. Prashuddhite hridayam nayasya sakshad darirabasha bihito pyagoganasha pranayarasanaya dhritanga padma sabhavati bhagavata pradhana ukta. And the translation is this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the conditioned souls that if they call upon him by speaking his holy name, even unintentionally or unwillingly, the Lord is inclined to destroy innumerable sinful reactions in their hearts. Therefore, when a devotee who has taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet chants the holy name of Krishna with genuine love, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never give up the heart of such a devotee. One who has thus captured the Supreme Lord within his heart is to be known as Bhagavat Pradhana, the most exalted devotee of the Lord. Thank you. So there's a lengthy conversation that you can read that's probably available in the database between Prabhupada and Dr. Stahl. He was a professor at UC Berkeley, I believe, who made a public claim in one of his interviews that the Hare Krishna movement was not Vedic. And Prabhupada used many of the same Shastric references that I just gave to refute him. He actually became very favorable to Prabhupada, but he was uneducated. He didn't know the difference between the Pancharatric system, the Bhagavat Marg, and the Vedic system. And he made an errant claim that the Hare Krishna movement wasn't Vedic. And all we did was chant Hare Krishna. Very similar to the way the Mayavadi sannyasis miscalculated who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was when they were in Benares, and they criticized him for chanting and dancing. However, Mahaprabhu already had the inside track because Srila Ishvara Puri, who had initiated him into both the Pancharatric system and into the chanting of the holy name, after Mahaprabhu took that initiation and came back to his guru, he had an inquiry. He said, "Did you give me the right mantra? Because the mantra I'm chanting now is driving me crazy. I can't help myself. I become like a madman." And his guru said, "This is very good. That means you're getting the result." And then he gave what is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when Kaviraj Goswami quotes it as the essential verse, the verse which gives the essential teaching of the whole Bhagavatam. He says, "Evam vratasva priyanama kirtya jatana rago jita chuta uchar asatyato rautiti rauti gayati unmadavam rititi lokabaya." And that is when you take a vow to chant Hare Krishna, Evam vrata swa priyanama kirtya, then as you continue, the name of Krishna will become very dear to you. Chaitana rago druta chitta. Chitta means the heart or the consciousness. Is druta means melted. The heart softens and then it melts. And then one becomes like a madman because you don't care for social convention anymore. Of course, that doesn't mean that we should go nuts in public. This is talking about those who are overcome by the mellows within their hearts and they're no longer aware of what's going on outside. They don't know if they have clothes on or not. So Srila Ishvara Puri gave that verse to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, said, "This is the proof that I gave you the right mantra because this is the effect that the holy name has." So in very practical terms, the sound vibration is very important. If you want to see what's inside your body, you can't do it with your eyes. That's why when you go to the doctor, let's say if a woman is pregnant, he wants to see, is it a male or female? So what do they use? Ultrasound. Sound vibration. And then they have an image of the child and say, it's a girl. There are other things they use ultrasound for in the body. If you want to see what's in the ocean, you can't see it with your eyes. So use sonar. Sonar is sound vibration. It bounces off the various formations in the ocean. Then it comes back and it gives the information about what's there. You can see it. You can see the form of it, actually. You can see the form. Something interesting I was reading about stethoscopes, which is the emblem of any doctor. If you just put a stethoscope around your neck and walk around, everyone will start calling you doctor because it's such a famous emblem. What's it used for? It's used for listening primarily to the heart. And doctors who are trained in that can hear various sets of harmonics within the heart that inform them exactly how the heart is working or not working, and so forth. But if you want to see the spiritual self, you have to use mantra. That's exploratory sound vibration. When you chant the holy name, then your self is revealed, and the super self. Iti murtyabhidanena mantra murti mamurtika yajate yagya purusham sasamyak darshana puman. We can actually see ourself. We can see Krishna within the heart by chanting the mantra, just as much as with a ultrasound, you can see the baby in the womb. It's by sound vibration, because everything in this world is a vibration. It looks substantial, but actually the forms are all formed through, or they're all coagulated through sound. In fact, in the beginning of creation, Brahma is just uttering mantras. They're algorithms. They set off algorithms, that is, that make the different formations in this world. Everything starts as a homogeneous substance, and it becomes manifest through the various sound vibrations. And so the entire material existence of a living being can be unraveled through the non-conglomeration. There's a conglomerating process that I just described, how the material world comes together through material sound. And if you want to unconglomerate it, if you want to undo all the mistakes you've ever made, does that sound like a good idea? Say yes. When someone asks you a question like that, you just say yes right away. Do you want to undo all the mistakes you've ever made? There's a process for that. There's a process. There's a mantra for it. So if you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, it unconglomerates all of the forms that we've created for ourselves because of chanting the wrong mantra. We're saying the wrong mantras. That's what we've got the wrong stuff. So now you start saying the right mantra, and it will rearrange everything. Actually, there's a science. You can look at it on YouTube, not right now, but it shows how if you take a metal plate and you put some sand or other kinds of grains, even rice on it, and then you hook it up to a particular, there's an apparatus, it hooks up, and then you can vibrate the plate at a certain frequency through music or other kinds of sound vibration. And as soon as you do that, you'll see that the grains form a definite pattern. It's uncanny. If you look at it, you'll see you can change the pitch and the pattern will change. It organizes itself. So the universe is organized because of sound. Our lives are organized because of a particular sound vibration we're making. If you've ever seen a movie, you know what movies are? You know, they have theaters, you go in and watch them and stuff. Yeah, movies, they all have soundtracks. People don't go to movies without soundtracks. In fact, in the early days, there were what were called talkies. In fact, when I lived in Bangalore back in the 1979 and 80, they had Navrantakis, west of Cord Road. That's where we lived. Where do you guys live? West of Cord Road, near Navrantakis. The talkies, taki means they started talking in the film, but before that they were silent. But they were never silent. They always played music with them. No one wants to watch a silent film without music. And life is full of sound vibration. You have a soundtrack in your life. So the last verse in the Vedanta Sutra is Anavritti Shabdat. If you want to undo all the stuff you did errantly in this world, then you need a mantra. You can undo it all by sound vibration. You can repattern your life by sound vibration. And as I tried to prove, albeit in a very scantily I've done, but we gave a couple verses. The best mantra is the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So you can take this mantra and dedicate your life to it, serve the mantra. And the best way to serve is with your tongue. That's where first and foremost service. Atashri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grayam Indriye Sevam Mukhi Jivado Swayameva Spuratyada. All your service, your yoga starts with the tongue. Chihwa adao. You begin with the tongue, you do seva with your tongue. So if you do the seva with your tongue, then gradually Krishna will reveal himself to you by that process. So it's a great verse. And here Shukracharya's admitting, Nishchidram anusankirtanam tava. My Lord, constant chanting of the holy name of your Lordship makes everything perfect. It's hard to make everything perfect, isn't it? No matter what you do in this world, it always comes out wrong. But this is the way to make everything perfect. Just chant Hare Krishna. Om Tat Sat. Now let's just take a few questions.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful explanation and so many verses. Anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand or you can unmute and speak at this point. Yes, Ramon Prabhu, please unmute. Can you unmute, please, Prabhu?
Sorry about that. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. If I had a choice between chanting of the holy name, Harinam Sankirtan, and daily worship, which one should come first?
Chanting Hare Krishna. It always comes first and it always goes afterwards as well.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Because iti murtyabhidanena mantra murtim amurtikam yajite yagya purusha sasam yag darshana puman. We can't see the deity without the holy name, nor can we worship or approach the deity properly. That's one of the points being made here. Prabhupada says at the very end of the purport, therefore Srila Jiva Goswami has recommended that although one should take care to follow all the principles in every kind of spiritual activity, especially in worship of the deity, there is still a chance of discrepancies, and one should compensate for this by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we therefore give special stress to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra in all activities. And there's a very specific direction given by Jiva Goswami. Everything should be preceded by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and you should end the worship with chanting the Hare Krishna mantra also. The deity worship, Prabhupada kept it really simple, especially for home worship. In the Pancharatric system, the home worship of the deity is simpler, and it's not as rigorous as temple worship is. Temple worship, you have to worship Krishna like a king. Should be ever increasing in opulence. Opulence mostly means flowers, more and more flowers and nice outfits. And it should be totally regulated. You can't be 2 seconds late. Everything should be on time. At home, the worship of deities is meant to be simple because you got a family and you got work. Krishna knows that. And so the Shastra describes how home worship is more flexible. However, if you take it up, you should be, don't neglect it. But it should be really simple. In fact, the head of the deity worship ministry in ISKCON doesn't have home deities. He doesn't keep deities at home, even though he's a grahastha, because Prabhupada gave so many instructions about if you're going to have deities at home, then you should keep it so simple that a main worship goes on at the temple. The main deities are at the temple, and keep your deity worship simple. He mostly advised devotees for home worship to worship Panchatattva and chant Hare Krishna. They'll accept a little bit of chanting. That's what you can offer your deities at home. Of course, if you live far from a temple, and you can have more opulent deity worship, because it is important for grahastas to worship the deity. But of chanting Hare Krishna and worshiping the deity, the holy name always comes first in everything.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, so be careful when you get deities that you don't start doing so much deity worship that, I can't finish my rounds now. Because then how you'll actually worship Krishna properly. And really, the holy name comes first. We worship the deities so that we can appreciate, so that we can be in a purified state of mind, because deity worship and the Panchrakshik system, getting up early, doing the Mangalarti, worshiping the deity, it requires that we stay in purified state of mind. You can't do all kinds of nonsense and have deities at the same time. I mean, you can. I mean, I've seen people do it, but it's not effective. So if you have integrity and you're worshiping the deity properly, then the chanting of the holy name is even more effective, because the two tracks, we're running on two tracks. But just don't. Prabhupada didn't encourage us to get overly involved with deity worship at home to the neglect of the temple deities, or of our chanting, or of our other services.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Krishna.
Vaswati Mataji, you can please ask your question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Very nice class, Prabhuji. So I have a question about the chanting together at home. So do you suggest that in a family, like my husband, myself, and my son, should we chant together? As you said, it's a sound vibration. We do separately when with different times. So do you suggest we should chant all together at home?
Have you ever voted on it? Did you have a family meeting and talk about it yet?
And no Prabhuji, but sometimes I tried with my husband, but our rhythm was different. So it's like making me more disturbed than doing it all together. So that's why I'm just asking you, what's your suggestion? Like, is that better sound vibration? Because it's not always possible to chat with the devotees association all the time. So if we do it at home, is that good suggestion, Prabhuji?
Good if it works well for you. Find out what works well, and you can experiment. I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about this. This is something he mentions, that you try different things to help yourself chant better. Sometimes you sit with a sadhu, he said, who's chanting very purely, and that can help you. Sometimes if you go by yourself and put a chadar over your head so you can't see anything, and just try chanting. So find what works best. We do at our temple, we have these japa circles. When I was in Pune, I was sitting with all the brahmacharis, and they'll sit in multiple circles. And I felt that this is very nice, for the community to come together, because everyone feels, hey, we're chanting japa together. So I brought it back to ISV, and we started doing it there. Before the pandemic, we did it for a couple of years, and we'd all come in at start chanting all together there inside at 6 a.m. And we'd sit in a circle, and the devotees really liked it. And we'd stop at intervals and actually take some reflections. And then in the pandemic, we've been doing it all the way through online. We have this program called Make Japa Great Again. And I don't know where we got that from that title. Do you? And it's been very nice. Devotees like that chanting together. So if you get together, you can try it sometimes. But if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Just find what works. It's a long life. You got to figure out what works, because you have to get through your childhood. You got to get through your teenage years. You got to get through your working years. Then getting old it's no cakewalk. It's you got to visit the physicians more and things like that to keep the parts holding on to your body. So in every era, there's some new challenge. So just yena tena prakarine mana Krishna nivesha. Find some way to always remember Krishna. The best way is to chant Hare Krishna, and it changes. I change things all the time because my tastes change. Like with prasadam, my wife never knows what I'm going to like next. She'll get on a roll and go, "Why didn't you tell me?" It's like, I didn't know until just now. And it's the same thing. You should hear and chant according to your taste. Hear and chant according to your taste. Everyone has slightly different taste. Just do your numbers, Sankhya Purvaka. You got to have some numerical strength and integrity in the chanting, but find out a way that works for you. That's okay.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Bless Prabhuji, can I ask one more question?
I'll let Shubha Vilas Prabhu be in charge of meeting out the questions, because he knows how the timings go and who else might ask questions and things like that. Shubha Vilas, Govinda Prabhu, you decide.
Hare Krishna. We'll ask Pavitra Renu Mataji, and then after that, if no one else has question, then you can ask yours.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. It is so nice to see you online. I just have a follow-up question on what you just told about deity worship. You said keep it simple. Can you let us know the most simple standard that I can that I can set if I'm beginning deity worship?
Well, the simplest is to get a picture of Panchatattva. Prabhupada started the movement with pictures of Panchatattva, right, Ramya? Prabhu?
Yes,
He started
that's what we had in Detroit for a number of years.
Yeah.
Deities.
Devotees painted pictures of Panchatattva. Ramya Prabhu knows, he was there. And then that was the altar. And if you look it up on the Vedabase, you'll find that Prabhupada really emphasizes this. He's, all spiritual power comes from the Panchatattva. If you have a picture of the Panchatattva at home, then no bathing required. I mean, this is a simple thing. You can just chant. You can do Sankirtan, Prabhupada says. By that, he means just chant to them. And you've got perfect worship according to the verse we're reading today. If you're really hankering for, to have a form of the Lord get Gaur-Nitai. Prabhupada established Gaur-Nitai worship. Before that was Gaur Gadadhar, with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and he had Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna on the same altar. Prabhupada really popularized, because according to his heart, he manifested it, the worship of Gaur-Nitai. And he emphasized too, when you worship Gaur-Nitai, then, Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole, Nachirar Marman, Nachirar Marman, Nachirar Marman, Nachirar Marman, Nachirar Marman. And you sing that song. It's all about how they don't consider any offenses. So if you worship Gaur-Nitai, you'll feel inspired and your chanting will increase and everything like that. So that's simple worship. If you start worshiping other deities, you have to be more attentive and careful. I mean, of course, all deities, it really has to do with the mood of the worship. But simple means that the most important aspects of worshiping the deities are nice flowers. So if you have a place where you can grow flowers, that's really nice. If you have any space anywhere in your townhouse, house, apartment, tent, van down by the river, wherever you happen to live, get yourself a little plot and grow flowers that grow in all different seasons. And you have to grow Tulsi. Everyone should grow Tulsi if you can. If you can't, then you get Tulsi leaves from somebody else. So I offer nice flowers to the Lord, and also you can do a simple artik. Artik means a lamp, and some bells, incense, and flowers like that. And then, you can increase if you need to. If it's part of the, you feel the momentum in your family, you can do a little bit more, but just be careful about increasing too much, getting overly excited, and then taking on a lot more. Because one of the points Prabhupada made about deity worship is try not to decrease it once you start increasing. So I always say simple, 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 because our main thing is Sankirtan. And if you worship Panchatattva Gaura-Nitāya and you do Sankirtan and you do simple stuff, you'll be happy. And everybody else will be too. And if you want to get more into deity worship, you can. It's nothing, it's good. You can do deity worship service, just make sure it fits into your overall scheme. If you're a preacher, so be careful, you get way too into deity worship and then it'll take most of your time. We're a movement of spreading the holy names and so forth. And we do the deity worship at the temple, mostly.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Did that help?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. All right.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, chanting is the most important limb of our bhakti. Can you please share a few key important things which can help us to improve our chanting of the holy name?
Listen when you chant. When you chant japa, as an example, be aware that you're chanting. That's the simplest rule. Be aware that you're chanting. And you may say, well, that's too simple. Give me something more important, more complicated than that. But try that one on for size for a week and just notice that when you're chanting, sometimes you're not aware that you're chanting. You may be thinking about an email. Is that possible? You might be thinking about, I don't know, who's going to win an election, or you might be thinking about who's going to win a cricket match, even as you're chanting, or you might be thinking about what's for prasadam or something like that. So the first rule is, and I'm saying first rule because Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that out of all the offenses, the root cause is inattention. So if you stay attentive and say, am I aware that I'm chanting right now? And keep coming back to that and practice being aware, because giving your attention to someone is a sign of love. And just try it with your spouse. Next time one of you is talking, try looking at your watch or somewhere else and see how he or she feels. And you'll notice that by taking your attention away just for a millisecond, the other person will become irritated. It's like, how come you're not listening to me? And so with the holy name, the way to really show respect to the holy name and to express our love is to organize that time when we're doing it so that we're not dividing our attention. And it requires a little organization to do that and a little practice, because the mind always says, what the heck, let's just do 2 things at once or 5 things, or let's do something else right now. So the main important ingredient is to give your attention, be present for the holy name when you're chanting. And it'll be highly effective. It already is highly effective. It's just that I'm not taking full advantage of it. Just like the sun has all kinds of vitamins. But if I go in the house and close the curtains, I don't get any of them. So similarly, if I turn my attention away from the chanting, it doesn't have the same effect as if when I'm leaning into it.
Thank you so much. Such wonderful clarification. Thank you so much. It's 9:01 as per Eastern time now. Shall we wind up or?
Well, you can't neglect Nandini Kishore.
Mataji, please.
At least I can't.
Nandas.
Hare Krishna.
I just felt that I must add that you revived book distribution in ISKCON, and you are the inspiration for everyone in book distribution. I really wanted that to be in the introduction, but so I'm adding. And second thing is, if you are in a setting where you cannot really chant Hare Krishna, but you can have the mass group of people say Om, is there a good benefit still? Let's say it's a corporate setting.
Well, you know I do
still some
corporates.
benefit?
You've seen my corporate stuff. So it's always, you always have to experiment. When you're doing preaching to the outside world, it's not binary. You always have to experiment and see how you can push the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that, when you're, okay, let's just take it back to the Bhagavatam for starters. What was Vyasadev's problem? Narada said, you got a problem. You're not pushing the envelope enough. You're hanging back here and saying, it's all right. Here's a way you can live in the material world and, everything's going to be fine. And Narada said, you're cheating people. You got to push it. So if Vyasadeva, who's the incarnation of Krishna, can, be playing with the hot cold to see, what's the right temperature, we can too. So you got to, one thing I've noticed is oftentimes people are ready for a lot more than we think. Like in the corporate, a lot of times, the devotees are holding back a lot because what if I say the wrong thing? And then the people are once they get enlivened by what you're saying, they start pushing and they go hey, come on, tell us the whole thing now. Give me where's the rest of it? You tell us. And there are some devotees who are, they're just reading Bhagavatam. They're a little careful about which sections they read sometimes, but they're pretty open with it. And they're getting tons of people listening and tuning in. Anyway, to your question, I do Om, I do Nitai Gauranga, and I also do the mantra too.
Okay.
I haven't introduced Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivadhari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, because people are like, wait a minute, that's a lot. I wouldn't mind it though, because the way I introduce it, a lot of it has to do in corporate or anywhere else with how you frame it. You have to frame it for people in a certain way, because even I'll just give you a really practical example. Even with getting kind of permission to talk to corporate audiences, it has so much to do with what you tell them it is. Because we don't want any religion. We're not religion, we're yoga. But we've been milking the Surabhi bhakti yoga thing for 50 years. Religion, get out of here. This is yoga. Even on the streets, yoga meditation. And then they open the book and say, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrender, So it has so much to do with how you present. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to hold these big festivals, and on the outside perimeter, there would be Ferris wheels, cotton candy, all kinds of games, and people go, mommy, let's go see the circus, and they go running. And then as they go a little further in, the closer and closer it gets to Bhagavat Kata and the holy name and everything like that. So we're still doing these things. Well, what's your experience?
Right now we have to sing sometimes Krishna bhajans, sometimes in my family setting, because there are some Jains, and in other corporate settings, I do Airbnb and meet a lot of people that way, or Facebook Marketplace. And sometimes you just have to hold back. You can't even give book, and sometimes you can go into wild kirtan. That's my experience. And I didn't know where to draw that line.
Well, that's why they give you the big bucks, because it's a hard thing to do. You have to measure every time, and especially when you're just on Zoom, because you're not exactly sure. We're getting better at reading everyone's faces and moods and stuff as we're on Zoom. What is this, year 10 now of the pandemic? But every audience, like the other day, I was giving a talk for, I forget what it was, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And just in the middle of it, two Mormon elders walked in. You can tell they wear the nice, suit jacket, and they have a little name tag on, says elder such and such. And as soon as they did, it was like, if you've ever driven a shift, a manual transmission, you have to shift down all of a sudden. So I shifted down and I called an audible at the line of scrimmage, just totally brought it back to a simple level, at least for a little while. Couldn't keep it there for Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam the whole time. But you'll always constantly have to do that. Notice who's in your audience. And the hardest thing to do is in a mixed audience is to satisfy everybody. So I'm sure you do a great job, and it sounds like you are. But there's no right answer to that. Sometimes you have to put in a little more. Sometimes push the envelope, see what happens. You can be really surprised. At Salesforce, what I would do is at the first hour, when I was going in there, the first hour I'd do my presentation. And then I'd say, if anyone wants to stay after, we're going to have a mantra meditation class. And at least a third of the people would stay. And we'd sit in a circle and I just teach them to chant Hare Krishna. And that turned into this japa club there. And there's at least 25 people chanting japa. So they're into it, usually a lot more than we think. Keep up the great work, Nandini Kishori. And that goes for everybody. Hare Krishna. You're doing important service, chanting japa every day, and then taking care of your other duties at the same time and spreading Krishna consciousness. You're it. You're very special, because Manushanam sahasreshu kashid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashin mam veti tattva. It's really rare that somebody takes a self-realization. What to speak of somebody coming into the inner circle, knowing Krishna, and then those who are in the inner circle and they're teaching it to others, expanding it, they're the most special of all, and that's all of you. Thank you very much, Shubha Vilas Prabhu and Manjulali, for keeping us all going here.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Would Ramya Prabhu like to say a final closing words?
Yeah, those were it. What I just said. But I'd like to offer a prayer. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, dear Shri Radha Manan Mohan, Shri Radha Govinda, Shri Radha Gopinath, Shri Panchatattva, Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadeva. If you so desire, please empower all the devotees in the Tampa Bay congregation, wherever they may be, in any part of the world, to always have a taste for the holy name, for hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, worshiping the deity, and spreading the Krishna conscious movement all over the world. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer, in part or in whole, please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna
Krishna. Haribo. Thank you.
Haribo.
Ramya Prabhu, good to see you. Hare Krishna, everybody. Vashaka Prabhushcha, Kripasinabheva Cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnava. Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Prabhu ki jai. Grace Ramya Prabhu ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Praise the Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare